On this week's episode of the Best of Johnston County podcast, we continue our candidate series, and this week we have Adam Caldwell, who is a candidate for Johnston County Commissioner District 3 seat. He's in a primary against former Commissioner Chad Stewart and current Commissioner Mike Rose on March 3rd, 2026. We talked to Adam about growing up in Sampson County, his time in East Carolina, what brought him to Johnston County, all the different community involvement that he's done in Johnston County, and why he wants to be your county commissioner for the next 4 years. So if you're interested in this race and what he would do if he's your county commissioner, listen in.
Welcome to another episode of Best of Johnston County, brought to you by Breeden Law Office. Our host, Jonathan Breeden, an experienced family lawyer with a deep connection to the community, is ready to take you on a journey through the area that he has called home for over 20 years. Whether it's a deep dive into the love locals have for the county or unraveling the complexities of family law, Best of Johnston County presents an authentic slice of this unique community.
Hello, and welcome to another edition of the Best of Johnston County podcast. I'm your host, Jonathan Breeden. And on today's episode, we're continuing our candidates series here leading up to the March 3rd, 2026 primary. And today we have Adam Caldwell, who is a commissioner candidate for District 3. There will be 3 people on the ballot on March 3rd in the Republican primary from District 3. Mike Rose, Adam Caldwell, and former county commissioner Chad Stewart. The early voting starts on February the 12th, and anybody who's a registered Republican or an unaffiliated registered person can go in and vote and ask for a Republican ballot and take part in this election. There are no Democrats running, so whoever wins this primary on March 3rd between the 3 of them will serve as one of your county commissioners from December of 2026 to December of 2030. Welcome, Adam.
Good to be here. Good to be with the mayor of Cleveland.
The mayor of Cleveland, right? The unincorporated mayor of Cleveland. Before I forget, I have to ask everybody, like, follow, subscribe to this podcast wherever you see it, whether it be on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, TikTok, X, LinkedIn, or any of the other social media channels of Best Johnston County Podcast. Best Johnston County Podcast comes out every single Monday, has now for over 28 months. So go back and listen to some of our previous episodes, including some of the other candidates, the other county commissioners. Almost every county commissioner has been on over the years. We've had the county manager, Rick Hester, all kinds of great guests. If you love Johnston County as much as I do, this is the podcast for you. There we go. Now, the mayor of Cleveland. I know, right? If Cleveland would incorporate, I could be the mayor, but Cleveland's not going to incorporate. That would take a survey and a vote of the people, and I don't think the vote of the people don't like to vote to tax themselves.
Yeah, I get it. I'm an anti-tax candidate in this race.
You are anti-tax. There's no doubt. So anyway, state your name, what you do.
Adam Caldwell, I live in Benson, married, 3 kids, 6, 4, and 10 months old. So I thought, it's not quite as busy at home, so why don't I just run for commissioner? No, it's a lot of fun. I have experience in the public sector and private sector. I travel all across Eastern North Carolina, help small towns with civil engineering needs, grants, stormwater, you name it, help them with public projects. So,
well, where were you born? Where'd you grow up? Because I know you moved here a few years ago. I met you when you moved here.
Yep, I'm one of those folks. So I wasn't born in Johnston County, but I got here as quick as I could. I grew up about 20 minutes south of the line between Newton Grove and Spivey's Corner.
Sampson County.
Sampson County.
Okay.
Yep. I graduated from Hopton High School.
Oh, cool. I didn't know that.
Followed my then girlfriend to East Carolina. Now she's my wife. She grew up in Benson and been there ever since.
Oh, how about that? How about that? That's great. What did you graduate? What degree did you get at East Carolina?
Poli-sci and history. I was a double major.
Okay. Oh,
yeah.
I was poli-sci.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Well, you didn't go to law school. You were probably smart. So anyway, well, I remember meeting you. I mean, I really got to know you when you were working with Tom Tillis, our U.S. Senator. When did you work for him? What did you do?
I started there April of 2016, and I left at the end of 2023. So I pretty much covered all of Eastern North Carolina during my time there. And it was really, I'd attend stuff that he'd get invited to, but could not attend due to his, Senate schedule. And it was so much fun. I mean, getting to know the elected officials and staff and citizens and just really being out there and getting to know those folks and the issues that matter to them. I loved it. It's probably going to be the best job I ever had, to be honest with you. A lot of fun.
I would be happier than a pig in slop if I could do a job like that, because I love politics. I like Tom Tillis a lot. He is everybody likes his politics, but he is, I knew him when he was Speaker of the House. He is as good and genuine and honest and Christian of a person as you will ever know.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? And they did some things in the state house he didn't agree with, but he understood that's where his caucus was. And I would go start fussing at him about something they're doing. He goes, "Look, I agree with you, but like I got a caucus. The majority is going to say what's going to happen." One of the things he didn't want to do is make judges partisan again, particularly at the trial court level. And he was, I agree with him about that, but we have partisan trial court judges now in North Carolina, so it is what it is. But he's a really, really, really nice guy. I think he's done a nice job.
I tell people all the time, and I'm like, look, I don't say this because I used to work for him, but you get to that level, and there's people that live in a bubble. He was never one of those. I mean, the guy you see in the grocery stores will be the same guy you'd see standing next to the president in the Oval Office and on the Senate floor. I mean, he's such a genuine, down-to-earth person.
Yeah, he's so nice, and some of that I think comes from the working class background, growing up poor and sort of having to get everything his own, everything he earned himself.
Right.
You know what I mean? So, well, cool. So you left there, and I think you went to work at Withers Ravenel, the big engineering consulting firm out of Raleigh or out of Cary, I guess. I think they got like 500 employees. What do you do for them?
Yeah, so I had a unique opportunity. I love what I was doing in the public sector, but I knew I didn't want to be one of those people who, worked in government their whole life. I wanted to see what it was like on the private side, and there was this opportunity to really kind of do what I was doing before in Senator Tillis's office and still help small communities all across Eastern North Carolina. And so I'm doing that now, working with, again, local staff, local folks on projects that benefit the public.
Some of the things you've worked on is stormwater. Getting new underground pipes, right. Stuff like that, right?
We help, really the niche is small towns like, let's say, White Lake, Windfall up beside Hertford in the northeastern part of the state. Small communities that really we just enhance the capabilities that they want to offer their citizens, through grant services and, again, through utilities, added capacity, just to help them, be all they can be for their citizens. So it's been fun.
Well, that's cool. That's cool. That sounds like another job I would like to have. Go around, talk to people, see if you can help them. Like that's what I do. I sit here and I help people every day. I help them get divorced, help them do a child custody case. So that does sound like fun. I love to travel around. I love to meet people. I love North Carolina. So you've had 2 jobs I think would be really neat. Maybe if I give up this practicing law thing, I could go work at Withers Ravenel. So anyway, so you have been pretty active in Johnston County. I know you got my seat on the Economic Development Commission in 2022. We were just talking about that before we started recording. You didn't know you were getting my seat. I didn't know why I was being replaced. They just told me Tom Tillis wanted somebody, and he had a lot more pull than Jonathan Breeden. So anyway, so talk about some of the things you've done. I know you've been on that board. You're on the planning board. Talk a little bit about some of the things you've done to serve the community.
So I first got involved really in, starting to serve the county on the planning board received an appointment in 2015. And learned a lot. I didn't know how much, being on that board I would learn, because I tell you, it's especially the work I'm doing now, just interacting with different boards, the experience from that. I did that until about 2023. I thought, with the county getting a new comprehensive land use plan, it'd be a good time to kind of see what else is out there. And those, sometimes 5-hour meetings on the planning board, I was like, I'd rather be at home if I can during those evenings. So left planning board, now doing Economic Development Advisory Board. Chris Johnson's awesome, working with a really good board there and learn a lot from them and try not only to grow, high-paying jobs here in Johnston County, but to support the jobs and the industries we have here now. So also involved in Benson locally. I serve on the Benson Area Chamber of Commerce Board, on the State Annual Singing Convention Board. Most people know that as the Benson Sing. I work with some really great people on that board as well. Preservation Johnston County, which is a group that Todd Johnson helped stand up to really identify notable historic sites across our county as we're changing and developing, making sure that we save those sites and promote those. So, I'm blessed to serve. I really am. Love this community, love Johnston County.
Well, you definitely have been active in a lot of different things. The Economic Development Board, I was on there, and, I think about the projects that came through or were starting to come through in the 2 years I was on there, which was one of the things was this spec building in Benson, and they didn't know what they were going to do with it. And it was like, well, do we want to give an incentive to somebody we don't know what it is? And I was like, yes, because it's Benson and we'll find a tenant, and you got to have the inventory for the business. Everybody wants something turnkey now. And so they ended up doing that for the developer of that, and who knew it would turn into Vulcan with $100,000 a year paying jobs in Benson.
Jonathan, you laid the groundwork for that. And really, a lot of folks who don't really understand economic development, you got to play the long game with that. And so you look at a town like Benson, I-40, I-95, geographically, there's a lot of places all over the country that would love to be in that position. But, again, it's taken that long for them to land an announcement like Vulcan. And I think a lot of that goes to the Advanced Manufacturing Training Center that we saw in Four Oaks.
Yes.
Of course, you got the first one in Clayton. It's been doing great things for a number of years. So just all that coming together, and then you have a company like Vulcan who's going to, help support our national defense with these magnets. I'm just excited. Benson's going to be known mules, moonshine, magnets, and music. So we got the 4 M's in Benson. So it's going to be awesome.
I mean, Benson's going to grow. I mean, there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. It's going to grow. They've got some new housing developments coming there.
I just want to make sure it grows the right way. And I think, again, when 77% of your workforce is leaving the county every day, making sure that we attract those high-paying jobs. So rooftops are here. Where are the folks going every day for work? We want to keep them right here in Johnston County.
Well, there's no doubt about it. I mean, Benson just had the largest tax increase in North Carolina. At least in Johnston County for sure, and was facing all kinds of financial problems. I know you're not on the Benson Town Council. I'm hoping maybe they're going to get that straight. I do hate that they did 100%. By the time you do it with the county and what the town did to them, the citizens of Benson's got 100% tax increase. I don't think that's good. But then again, all the people that gave that 100% tax increase to the town of Benson are running unopposed. So obviously the citizens didn't think enough to run against them. But I mean, you're probably going to have to pay that. I mean, that's not good. 100% tax increase.
That's when
on property taxes. I mean, a lot of people on fixed incomes.
When that reval notice came January of last year, and we saw what the increases were going to be across the county, I mean, it put a hole in my pocketbook, like I'm sure it did a lot of other folks. But my first thought was, what's this going to mean for folks who live in town, especially like seniors and those on fixed incomes who not only have to pay the county tax, but are getting hit with the municipalities. And to my knowledge, I don't think any municipality stayed at that revenue neutral rate or went under it. Most of them stayed the same.
Well, several of them stayed the same. Yeah. So you had 70% raise in property values in Johnston County, and Benson and Selma left the rate the exact same. So that's a 70% tax increase right there. And then the county was about 20 to 25% across the board. Some people more, some people less. And that's how you end up getting, and Princeton barely cut the rate. So they ended up with about an 85, 90% tax increase there. And that's just a lot. And, I don't live in a town. I live out here in Cleveland, the county. But I mean, it wasn't fun for me to have to pay 20% more property taxes. But I mean, I talked to the commissioners. You talked to the commissioners. I understood where they were. Not sure I absolutely agreed with them, but I wasn't in the seat to make the decision. I mean, you studied it. You looked at it. You went to the budget meetings. What did you think? I mean, it ended up being about 20% across the board. Were they right? Were they wrong?
If I was been on the board at the time, I would have kept it at the revenue neutral rate. As a conservative, I really think raising taxes should be a last resort. And really, that's the key plank of my platform is for so long in Johnston County, what has happened is we've had an imbalance in our tax base. And what I mean by that is residential growth has been so strong for so long that industrial growth has not had a chance to keep up, or has not kept up rather, with that. And so what we see is, if that industrial, if we could pump that up a little bit more, for every dollar that's spent on residential, it's going to be at least $1.20 that's going to require in services. Because what do the folks want? They want the sidewalks, they want, trash pickup, schools, parks. Whereas every dollar you put toward industrial, it's only 60 cents in services. So they're not expecting as much in return for that. So really got to do a better job of balancing that tax base, because what I fear is for the next reval, if we don't get it right, we're going to be in the same situation again where taxes could be, going up.
Well, I know you went to a couple of the budget meetings. What do you think the commissioner should have cut out of that budget that ended up being about 20% more than the budget before?
Right. Well, I mean, again, if I was on there, I would have went line by line looking for ways that we can maximize efficiencies and ways, we can cut waste. I know the commissioners established a lot of priorities at their strategic retreat. And so that was kind of the impetus. I think they wanted a little bit of cushion to knock off some of those capital priorities. I would have said, well, look, guys, we're asking a lot of Johnston County taxpayers by doing this, particularly the ones that live in town. And so then to turn around, not only after that, but to, keep that rate above revenue neutral and say, but hey, you know what? We got an opportunity for a baseball stadium that can come to Smithfield. Here's $2 million for that. To turn around and do that right after the vote, to me, I think a lot of citizens had a tough time swallowing that.
Yeah, and I actually like the baseball stadium idea. What I don't like are the terms of the lease. I think the lease is bad for the town, but I like baseball stadiums, and it's something to do. But it is a for-profit company getting a stadium. That's how the game works. But I can understand that. I know several of the commissioners voted against the baseball stadium.
There's two.
Yeah, I know Butch Lauder voted against baseball stadium, and so did Bill Stovall. So I mean, what's the answer, right? Like, private property owners can sell their property to whoever they want to sell their property to. Do you think we should say, no, you can't sell your father's farm, he's dead, you live somewhere else, to this developer?
You mean in terms of farmland?
Yeah, farmland, build houses, right? Like, I mean, how do you stop houses from being built?
Again, hey, I'm a private property rights guy.
Okay.
But, we've got planning and zoning that's been around for a while for a reason. And I think if you look at kind of the default way it's been done in Johnston County for so long, we have 100 acres in Bentonville and 100 acres in Clayton. It's been treated the exact same density, you name it, treated the exact same. It's the same county, but at the same time, do we want Bentonville to look like Clayton does now? And growth in Clayton, good for them. That's awesome. But I think you talk to most people in Johnston County, they say, we like Bentonville being rural. Talk to the people who live there; they'll tell you the same thing. And so, I don't think you don't tell somebody that no, you can't sell your property, you can't develop it. But there's a reason why the county has tools at its disposal, like zoning. I mean, you wouldn't put an asphalt plant next to a daycare. I mean, it's just situations like that. And commissioners are entrusted to determine how this county is going to grow, what it's going to look like in 10, 20, 30 years. And, again, I'm talking to a lot of people across this county, and I hear them say, look, we're growing so fast, but are we keeping up? Are we able to keep up? And so, again, there's a lot of things that make Johnston County special, and don't want it to look all the same, with the growth just coming down. There's ways you really can make sure that it's planned correctly and that we're preparing for it.
Have family law questions? Need guidance to navigate legal challenges? The compassionate team at Breeden Law Office is here to help. Visit us at www.breedenfirm.com for practical advice, resources, or to book a consultation. Remember, when life gets messy, you don't have to face it alone.
Right. So, I mean, talk about some of the zoning things. You were on the planning board for 8 years. You know way more about this than I do. We're about to get a new uniform development ordinance that sort of gives the teeth to the new master land use plan that was approved about a year ago. Talk about that process. I know you worked pretty hard on that. You had a lot to do with that master land use plan, just in basic terms for the public, and what this new UDO, whenever it gets passed in the next maybe 6 months, is going to do. Because I don't completely understand it, but I understand some parts of it.
One of my frustrations when I was on planning board, and really what kind of lit a fire under me when I first thought about running 4 years ago, was, if you live next to a piece of property that's about to be developed, you get a notice in the mail telling you, hey, this property is, there might be developed into something, show up at this meeting. We'd have so many meetings where folks would show up, and a lot of them raising very good points. They've lived there their whole lives, and again, bringing a lot of good information to the table. They show up at that meeting thinking, hey, I'm here, my voice can make a difference. And the way the current system is structured, that if an applicant comes in there and they meet all the criteria set forth by the policymaking body, which is the commissioners, if they meet all that criteria, legally the planning board has to go ahead and just approve it. So my frustration was, we're asking all these folks to show up and they're raising their voices and we're just going to sit here and listen to them, but again, just rubber stamp. That's really what I had a problem with. It was one of my biggest sources of frustration and on the planning board. And so I'm hopeful with this new UDO. I know one of the things in there is it sets kind of a threshold for a certain number of homes that instead of just, being either approved by staff or going to the planning board, that the commissioners instead would be the ones to decide up or down, whether it's going to happen. And I think that's the way it should be, because we don't elect the planning board, we elect the commissioners. So I think that's a positive change that we're going to see. A number of other things I think that'll be good in there. We started working on that comprehensive land use plan. And there was a stakeholder group that was really heavily involved in that. And it came to the planning board. That was adopted in August of 2023. So the end of 2023 by the planning board. Commissioners later adopted it then. But here we are, 2026, still no UDO. And the comprehensive land use plan, it's more of a visioning document. I mean, to really give it teeth, you have to have that UDO. And so folks are asking, the really good question of, why is it taking this long? I mean, and imagine how much has changed just in that time from 2023 to today in 2026. So I think we need to go ahead and get that in place. There's going to be things to iron out. There's going to be fixes. It's a living document after all, but we've changed a lot as a county, and we need that document to help guide us to where we're going to go.
Well, and for all of my Cleveland listeners who supported me all these years, the Cleveland School Road basically becomes commercial under this land use plan. And the Cleveland School Road going towards Wake County, you can also see light industrial, which I think there is somebody coming through the plans right now to build a light industrial complex surrounding the Cleveland Fire Station number 2 there on Cleveland School Road. So be paying attention. A lot of changes coming here to 4042, 4036, 40 Veterans Parkway, and it's not all houses. You're going to start to see light industrial in this area. We are next to a major interstate. It is going to be fairly close to some houses. So pay attention. You get one of those notices in the mail, start studying this. But ultimately, the commissioner's got to make some of those decisions, particularly about some of this light industrial they're talking about putting over here around the fire station. So how are you going to approach that, right? You can't talk about anything specific now. You're not on there. You probably haven't looked at these plans. But how are you going to approach those decisions?
Right. Well, hopefully, with the state, most folks may be aware of this, the state kind of put in a provision to a Hurricane Helene relief bill that prevented planning staff from doing any downzoning. So what that's meant for Johnston County is, going through this comprehensive land use process and the new UDO now, the map where you show, the different places you can have the zoning overlays, they can't really do that because of state legislation. But there's been talk about maybe trying to repeal some of that or roll some of that back. But I think that'd be a very important graphic for the commissioners to have as they're planning, what this county is going to look like in 10, 20 years, to have that graphic to look at. Okay, we've zoned this area for this area for that, and to help them make those kind of decisions. But again, going back to something I said earlier about, I really think it's important that for commissioners to be the ones making a lot of those decisions when it comes to, like, say, residential with the subdivisions, because folks need to know that when they show up and voice their concerns or, whatever they have on their mind to a board, that it's the folks who can take that into consideration. Because the way it was with the planning board is, we saw the data for traffic count, we saw the data for school capacity, and at that time there was a lot of schools that were, at that level or over capacity. We saw all that information, but then they said, you can't use that in your decision making. So it needs to go to the policy making board so they can do that.
Well, and in the current way it's currently written, if you meet the criteria and the planning board approves it, it doesn't go to the commissioners. So the planning board in 2025 approved about 1,300 lots, new lots, and the planning board in 2024 approved about 1,200 new lots. And I don't think any of those went to the county commissioners because these developers were meeting what's there. The other thing the public has to understand is once your thing is approved, it's good for like 8 or 10 years, and you don't have to build on it right now. So a lot of development we see now are the subdivisions that were approved many, many years ago, where once it's approved, it's there, and then they waited for better market timing, better supply chains, particularly during COVID and all of that, to now build. So it's not like when you see a new neighborhood, that neighborhood probably went through the process 2, 3, 4 years before they ever broke ground.
Right.
And I don't know that the public completely understands that either.
I wish I had that exact number off the top of my head, but that also factors into when you think about, our water capacity, our sewer capacity, because if it's on the books, even though nothing's built there and it still looks the same way it always has, that's factored into the capacity. And we're reaching, capacity very, very fast. And so we got to make sure, we're talking about the future, how we're growing, that we're doing it responsibly in a way that the growth we're getting, it allows the folks who already live here to have a chance to work here as well and not have to commute, to Wake County and elsewhere for a high-paying job.
Have you studied what they're talking about doing with the water? It comes out of right there near Wayne County. It goes into a rock quarry in Princeton, and it's $800 million to take it to Clayton or something. That's going to be passed on to the users of the water and all that. Have you looked at that plan? Do you think they're on the right track? Do you think they're going down the wrong track?
So it's tough. I'm glad they're going ahead and thinking about, planning for that down the road. But what I worry about, not just as a ratepayer myself, but for the rest of Johnston County is that burden going to fall heavily on the folks who are already paying those rates, heavier on them versus, the folks who will be taking advantage and moving here and living here. So we got to make sure we try to balance that. And there's a lot of different proposals they talked about, buying water from City of Raleigh and Wilson and Sampson County and other places, because the price tag on that plan is hefty. And what we do know is, the longer that it's down, that we wait and it's down the pipe, so to speak, it's only going to get more expensive as well.
Right.
So
right. Well, you've been talking about the budgeting process and how you think it should be more open. The current budgeting process, they start sort of talking about it in April. The school board, I think by law, has to send them a budget request by May 15th. And then they start working on it. They have 2 or 3 budget work sessions in June. They have a couple public hearings and they vote on it into June. That is the sort of current process. The budget is $420 million. 8 years ago, it was $220 million. You've criticized that process. How can it be better?
I went to a few of those public budget hearings and they just kind of opened it up. And they say, okay, whatever you got, just come on up. And it's like, what exactly do you want us to speak on? Like, what information do you want to give us? I'd love to see it more, citizen engaged, citizen focused. Let's do the meetings they have on the budget beforehand. I'd love to see those, like they kind of do with a strategic retreat. They have everybody at a table and they're filming it and folks can go sit and watch that. I'd love to see that kind of format with the way we budget. Because again, if I'm fortunate enough to be elected, I'm going through there line by line because I need to understand not only what I'm voting on, but I also need to understand that it's not my money. It's not the county's money. It's the taxpayers' money.
Right.
So we need to be the best stewards we can of that.
Right. Well, what else have I not asked you about? These are the things I know you've been campaigning on. Is there anything I've not asked you about that you want to talk about? Funding for public schools. They have a $500 million in buildings they need to do. Any of that you want to talk about?
Sure. Yeah. On the public school piece, I'm proud to be the son of a public school teacher. I'm a product of, a Title I public school. My sister-in-law works at a school, and I've got my first grader at a public school here in Johnston County. So, I love our public schools, what our teachers do. I'm also a very big advocate of an above all education approach. I think each parent should have every tool at their disposal for what best fits their child, because they know what best fits their child, not government. So, charter, private, parents should have those options. So I'm an above all education, advocate. Of course, we want to make sure that we fund our public schools to the best of our ability. It is the biggest chunk, of the county budget. But again, making sure that we're being wise stewards of those dollars, that we're building these campuses smarter and going up, not out. There's always, to me, greater efficiencies, making sure we maximize that dollar that's going there and supporting our classroom teachers, making sure we do that. It's very important.
Well, I guess one of the things that this board has not done that I think they should do, which is give construction funds to charter schools. What do you think about that?
Honestly, I'm going to have to study that one a little bit more, because in my mind, I'm thinking about all the needs I know that our public schools currently have. And an issue that's really important to me is, students in mobile units. And I know there's a plan now that the board has talked about that will reduce that. I think the total number of mobile units down by like 87% on a timeline. I want to do everything I can to speed that up. It's a safety concern I have with students in that. If you go to a school campus, I think I'll applaud the school system for doing a good job, better job trying to fortify the brick and mortar schools, how you get in, how visitors can get in, and how students can, making sure they don't wander out, things like that. But you go on a campus and you look at mobile units, and oftentimes they're just behind the campus, beside it.
Right.
And I want students out of there, not only for safety, but I want them in a brick and mortar classroom as well. And again, I'm not saying I'm opposed to the charter funding at all. It's just an issue I need to study a little bit more.
I got you. So, all right, I guess, how can people reach out to you and your campaign and learn more about it?
Sure. So again, I'm on Facebook, Adam Caldwell for Johnston County Commissioner. VoteAdamCaldwell.com. It's my website. I've got a bunch of different policy positions on there. I'm doing my best to get around. Hopefully, I'll run into folks all around the community.
Well,
I'm trying my best to get out there.
I mean, you're out there. I mean, you're definitely working hard. I mean, you're everywhere I go, and I go to a few things, and I've not been anywhere in the last 3 or 4 months. You haven't been at it, so you're definitely getting out there and talking to people. There's no doubt about that. So the last question we ask everybody on this podcast: what do you love most about Johnston County?
I love the heritage, and you can't think about the heritage of Johnston County and our history and our agricultural backbone. I mean, thank goodness agriculture is still our #1 industry here in Johnston County. And I want to see them do even better. It's tough. Agriculture is tough. It's a tough business to be in nationwide. And so if I'm fortunate enough to be reelected at the county, I want to make their job, the folks in agriculture, I want to make their job easier. I don't want to make it more burdensome because, you look at the heritage of Johnston County, what makes it so special, the people we have here. And, you ask folks who move here, what's special to you about Johnston County? And they say, it's just special. You go out to the place and you go to the town, the small towns, just the community feel. And as big as we are and as much as we're growing, it's still tight knit. I'll give you an anecdote of that. I went to Archer Lodge. They do a New Year's brunch every year.
Yeah.
This past January 1st was my first time being there. Folks hear about Archer Lodge. It's huge. I mean, it's booming ever since they were first incorporated. But you go in that room and it's just like neighbor to neighbor, like they've known each other for 30 years, even if they just moved here, 2 years ago. So that sense is, to me, I see that all across Johnston County. It's special. Our heritage, our people. I just want to preserve that and help it.
All right. Sounds good. So as I mentioned earlier, we'd like to thank Adam Caldwell for being our guest on this week's episode of the Best Johnston County Podcast. Adam will be on the ballot on the March 3rd, 2026 Republican primary ballot. If you are a registered Republican in Johnston County or a registered unaffiliated voter in Johnston County, you can go in and you can ask for a Republican ballot. There is no Democrat in the race. The Republican primary will determine who will have the District 3 commissioner seat for the next 4 years. It's between Adam Caldwell, current Commissioner Mike Rose, and former Commissioner Chad Stewart. As I mentioned earlier as well, please like, follow, subscribe to this podcast wherever you see it, whether it be on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, TikTok, X, LinkedIn, or any of the other social media channels. Best Johnston County Podcast comes every single Monday and has now for over 28 months. Also, please do so kind to leave us a 5-star review down below and tag us in your Instagram stories, Best of Johnston County. Until next time, I'm your host, Jonathan Breeden.
That's the end of today's episode of Best of Johnston County, a show brought to you by the trusted team at Breeden Law Office. We thank you for joining us today, and we look forward to sharing more interesting facets of this community next week. Every story, every viewpoint adds another thread to the rich tapestry of Johnston County. If the legal aspects highlighted raise some questions, help is just around the corner at www.breedenfirm.com.